Hello, everyone. You're welcome to another SQL session. All right, so in our previous sessions, we had discussed very interesting keywords. We talked about distinct, we talked about limits, we talked about another interesting one called like, where we used to retrieve data via patterns, right? So we've explained wildcards, the percentage, the underscores, all right? So if you have not watched that, I would recommend that you go back to the previous session so you could understand all these concepts. All right, so in this session, we'll be dealing with something very interesting, and they are called functions. All right, however, this would be termed aggregation functions, okay, or let's leave it at aggregations. All right, so or we could say aggregate functions, aggregations. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, so what do we understand by aggregations? All right, this is like your usual English term. However, there would be so many definitions about aggregations, but I will try to give you one of the rare and simple definition that could help you. All right, so I would say that aggregation simply means combining let me maximize this, combining multiple values as inputs, all right, and presenting one value as output. As simple as this. So it's just accepting many values and outputting one value. So input are multiple values, output one value. All right. So now, what are the aggregations we have? We have the counts, and you would see how this explains the definition very perfectly. Okay, so we have the counts, we have sum, we have average, we have minimum, and we have maximum. Then there is a concept called group by, which is not exactly, it is not an aggregate function, all right, but it works with it. We are going to dedicate a particular session for this, all right. So but before you understand that, you would need to go through the process of understanding aggregations. Okay, so let's delve into very necessary practicals. We would use one of our tables, select all from, we have student registration, right? We've been using a lot of these student registration records. So let's see what we have here. Okay, what's going on? Select all from student registration. What is it saying? Oh, okay, the spelling. All right, all right. Run this. Fine. Awesome. Now we have all these columns that does not require explanation because we've been working with these all this while. All right, so we want to apply counts to see what counts does. Let's say there is a question on this particular table. We want to see the number of people from these locations. All right, people who are registering from these locations. Recall that when we talked about distinct, we used that column to explain this thing. So let me recap a bit to juggle your mind a little. Now we said that if you select the location tab, all right, select location from student registration, student registration, you would have a list, a long list of items, and you are seeing a lot of redundancy, duplicate records, right? Nigeria appearing in many rows. Okay, so this is exactly what you asked it for. Okay, but if what you meant was to give you just um just the representative of each of these locations, then that means you have to include distinct, right? and this gives you a list of nine. All right. So, but how do I know this list is nine? The reason why I know that, aside counting it, is because I have it written here: nine rows affected. Okay, and this is because of the environment we are using. In many cases, you will not really see this. This is not an output. This is just like a query in the console. All right. Now, how would you know the numbers? Let's imagine that the distinct value are is a very long list. So that means for you to get the number, you would have to count each of these things. Now, when it becomes a lot of manual activity, then you know that something is wrong somewhere. Okay. So how are we going to count this without manual involvement? Simple. We use the count function. Okay. We use the count function, and because it is a function, when you declare any of the aggregation functions, you'd have to put those elements into the bracket. Okay. So that is why it's called a function. All right. So for example, if I'm using sum, it has to be, this is what makes it a function. If I'm using average, so all aggregate functions comes with, so when you hear the term function, they usually most of the times come with the parentheses. Okay. So just be aware. Now, with discounts, you realize that everything that was listed has been shrinked into one value. So this is what explains what aggregation really means. It has accepted a list of items and resulted into just one item. So this tells us that the distinct counts of the locations in our table is 9. So we have 9 distinct locations. If we remove this distinct, what will you expect? You should expect 30, right? And that is it, because it's not distinct. Okay, so but you see that it doesn't result into a long list or a short list or whatever list. It results into just a single value. All right, so you could use this to give you different things. For example, I could run this count on different locations, okay, or on different columns. So I would have, say, let's do some. Okay, so maybe I have counts, location, and if it would be necessary or logically okay if I include other columns, because obviously you should expect to have the same numbers, right? Except you put a condition somewhere. Let's do this. So let me do counts. Let's do count. What should we count? Let's look at these and say, oh, interesting. Okay, fine. So let's look at source of joining. Yeah, source of joining. So let's make it distinct, because when we use distinct, we are sure that we are going to get different values. So if I use source, let me just do this without distinct, source of joining. So we want to see the counts of source of joining. So you see, you're seeing it's 30, 30, right? But if we do distinct, if we do distinct here and we do distinct here, you'll see that the values will be different, because there are 9 countries represented, and there are 7, so say social media platforms or whatever platforms that have been used to influence people into joining the program, right? So this is the source. This is what gave them the the notice, what gave them the information about this program and piqued their interest. All right, now you can see counts one, so this doesn't really mean a lot, so we need to change this by including our alias, and by alias we say as. So I would say this is going to be location. All right, and this is going to be as, I would say, source, maybe platform. So when I run this, it gives me, oh, the spelling, location, platform. All right. So uh, if I want it to be uppercase, you know that if I put this capital P, capital L, because this is Postgres, which is very case sensitive, is still going to subject it to lower cases. But if I insist that I want this to be in upper cases, I have to put them in double quotes, not single quotes. All right. So if I do this, I would get exactly what is the location platform. All right. So we can now see the effects of count. So it has shrinked, summarized all those things into a single value. So with this, I can know that the number of unique locations of the people that registered with this academy and that is nine. Okay, so the platforms that attract them into this place, from all those platforms we have, all the social media channels we have, we just have seven unique platforms that has successfully brought in people into this academy, right? We could go further. Let me break this down. Let me put this on a different line. So we could go further in even putting some conditions. Let's say we want to see discounts based on gender. So I would say where is it gender? Did we write the column name as gender? Sex. Okay, sex. So where sex equals female, and we run this, so you can see that means the female came from eight distinct locations and from five distinct platforms. All right, so you could use counts to give you a summary of the number of of different values from the columns, all right, just as it has been represented here. So knowing this much about count is knowing everything about count. There's really nothing beyond this that that would be more complicated than what it is here. So count is a very simple function, is very simple aggregation function. All right. So knowing up to this point, understanding it up to this point is as the same thing as knowing everything that is necessary about counts. Okay. Okay. So let's go to the next. The next is sum. This is another interesting function. All right. So some I would like to let's see what we can use some here for, because some is just like your addition operation, and others is yes your addition operation. So however, some works on numerical columns. Okay, so just know that I think among all the aggregations here, the some count is the one that comfortably works with any kind of data type column. All right, any kind of data type column. All right, so it could work with strings, it could work with, the reason why I said comfortably means that others could work on non-numerical columns, but the result is not a very sure one because they're not designed for for the likes of non-numerical columns. All right, so I would explain when we get there. All right, so let's see what we can do with sum. I would want to sum some things up. It's not logical to say the sum of age. Like, why would you want to get the sum of ages of people? Sounds like rock of ages. Okay, so let us move into now. To achieve this, I would just quickly create a table. So let's just do table definition, create table, and what should be our table's name? Orders. All right. So create table orders, and I would want to say the would start with let's say the item. Let's say the item, and that should be varchar 20, which is a string. And let's do the next one. Next one should be, let's say, um, the category. Let's say product category or item category, and that should be varchar 22, varchar 20. Then we should have quantity. Quantity should be integer, And the last but not the least would be price. Price should be price should be numeric. Okay, so numeric, we have done decimals before. So numeric is just something like decimals. Okay, you can just put numeric, and then you decide to put the decimal. So you could use numeric like that. Okay, so it's going to be like numbers. All right. So but when you add these values in it, it it tells you that these numbers are actually decimals. So you could use this or you could use decimals. So I'm using this because we've not used this. We've used the decimal data type. So you'll be used to the different ways of representing this. So going forward, we would be when we meet some things like this, we'll probably use other keywords, okay, that mean the same thing, so that it's going to get you flexible in the usage of the commands in SQL. All right, so we run this and it is done. Okay, so the next thing is to insert some values. So let's quickly do that. So I will do insert into the table orders, and what are we going to do here? We'll start with the column names, which is the item category. I'm taking my time to do this so that you also could get used to creating, your table definition. All right, so it should be one of the simplest things that will just come in like a reflex action to you. Okay, so now say the item. So let's just fill in this list. So I would say apples. Okay, so these apples, what category is apple? Fruits. Okay, so then the next thing is quantity. Let's say five. And what's the price for each of these? So let's say 700. Okay, now I want to do a bulk insert so that we could have like meaningful data. Then the next is I would say iphone iphone. And in item category, where would you put the phones? Should I call it electronics? Let's see. Electronics, I don't know if electronics is very okay for to categorize phones, but yeah, so this is an example. Let's take it as electronics. Okay, so now it can't just be iPhone. What version of iPhone is this? Let's say 14. And how much is that? Okay, quantity should be say 4, and the price should be say in naira. This should be like maybe say let's look at something like 450,000. Okay, then we continue this to I'd like to break this so that we could use the space, and it continues to what else should we use here? um we could let me just okay, so let's say Nike Air. All right, and this is footwear, and we have say three of these, and it's probably 30,000. And then we have what else should we have? Let's just put like say iron. Okay, say electric iron. Okay, and then this is electronics as well. Electronics. And this, we have say six of these, and the price say maybe 4,500. Okay, then we should have, let's say, chair. All right, chair. And chair is furniture. And furniture, then we have say seven of these at maybe two for so let's say 12,000. Okay, so let's add the table, furniture. Hope all these things would not give us an error. Shouldn't. So I have furniture, and you could fast forward these so that you could, continue from the next. I think this is just taking time. Probably in subsequent classes, we will just use AC data, and I will just insert the values in bulk. Okay, so furniture, then maybe maybe 7.2, and then maybe this should be um let's say 15,000. Okay, so then let's assume this is all right. Let's assume this is all, and then we insert. So 6 rows affected. If we want to see our data, we will just run these SQL. So let me just do SQL and select all from others. Okay, and Voila. So this is it. You could see that we did not include decimals, and this has been explained when I was talking about decimal type. And because we declared that there will be two values at the end, so it has automatically inserted the zeros. All right. So this is a list of uh let's say the orders that has been placed. Okay. So now I want to see. I want to use the sum function, right? So I'm saying here that I would say select, say let's say the sum of the price. Okay, let's say select the sum of the price from others, and I have this. Okay, so I could filter it. I say okay, probably where item category, where item category is let me see, electronics. So it's going to sum the electronics. So it's going to give me 450,000 plus 4,500, which is 454,500. All right. So some persons might be a little puzzled. You want to ask, what is the difference between, what's the difference between, and put that as a question. What is the difference between additions? Okay, let me just call it, say, additions, or summing, let's say sum using this, the plus, okay, operator, and the sum function. Okay, so the difference is very clear. All right, they are not similar in many ways. Okay, so the only similarity between them is that it's adds, that is all. But after that there is almost no similarity, and I will explain to you. Okay, so now when we are talking about the plus operator. Okay, so this is an operator. We've already defined it. It's an operator, and this is a function. Now, the difference between, say, the addition, let me just, for sake of lack of proper words to use, I would say addition. For the difference between the addition, which uses the plus operator, okay, is that this one adds, individual individual values. Okay, it adds individual values. But when it comes to sum, okay, when it comes to the sum function, what sum function does is to add an entire column, values, or a group of values. All right, so this one adds individual values, I would say, in a column. Okay, but this, for the sum, it adds an entire column values. Okay, and let's see if we can experiment something here. So when we do SQL and we say select, let's assume what we want to do is we want to add the quantity and the price, right? So if I say quantity quantity plus price, right? And from others, this is what we will get. We are going to have 6 rows. Okay, so I'll just put an alias here. Okay, so let's say as sum of items. say prices. Okay, now you see that it produces one, two, three, six rows. Okay, it produces six rows, but if we do something like say, if we say sum, if we say sum, let's say let's try this, which should give us an error. If we say we want to sum the quantity and the price, okay, and we assume that this should work, it will give us an error. Okay, it says this, it does not exist. All right, this is not a proper way of defining a function. Okay, so instead you have to put them on different, like use different functions. So for now I would say some quantity, and then I would say some price. All right, so if I do this, is it price or amount? Price, yes. So if I do this and I run it, you can see it has given me this some quantity. Let's call this quantity. Some price. Let's call this price. So it has given me what is going on here? What's going? Let's say, okay, okay, okay. I had already given it an alias before. So if I do this, you are saying that this is giving me the sum of the quantity. It's the results in essence is one value. That's the major difference. So initially, when we use the plus operator, it will give us, it will reproduce the table, it will reproduce those columns, all right? But it added each of those values, but in the sum you are adding everything together, the entirety of the column, and producing just one result. Hope that is explanatory enough. Yes, I believe so, because I've even learned from the explanation. Okay, so let's see what we can do next. We have average, minimum, max. Now this gives us the same kind of effect. So let's just go back here and say I want to check out if all I just need to do is to change this. Okay, so if I just change this to average, it gives me, okay, so I have to remove this alias. Okay, so if I just do this, it gives me the average of the quantity. If I do the minimum, it gives me the minimum of the quantity. That means the lowest quantity in this entire table is 3. The maximum quantity is going to be 7. I could put them together. I could say the minimum quantity as quantity and give me the maximum quantity as well. So it gives me the maximum quantity, and I say give me the average. Just give me the average price. Okay, just give me the average price, and it does this. And when I run this, it gives me the difference. So to I have to just use alias to, so that I could know, or whoever is reading this could know the what I'm actually referring to. So I'm saying this is maximum quantity and this is average price. Okay, so when I do this, so this is the effects of aggregations. All right, this is the effects of aggregations. So please be mindful that you use these aggregations majorly on numerical columns. Okay, using it on non-numerical columns could give you very funny results. So there is no need practicalizing it because it is not recommended. They are mostly here for the sake of manipulations of numerical columns. What comfortably works on both numerical and non-numerical columns is the counts. Okay, all right. So now these are the things that are necessary to understand the aggregation functions. In the next session, we will dedicate almost the entirety of the session to discuss group by, because group by is a very important function or a very important keyword used in SQL. However, many people still find it difficult to really manipulate with it. Okay, but it is easy. If you can understand it, then you would know the group by very easily. All right.